Hello, Watch Forest Focus. Nottingham Forest are out of the relegation zone on goal difference after they drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace today. Luton lose, Everton lose, and Burnley get a draw, and Sheffield United get a draw. So the relegation picture hasn't changed too much, but we are out of the drop zone at least. We'll talk about that game in full and see how we're feeling ahead of Fulham at home on Tuesday. Another big game in the company of, first of all, Reds fan Chris Aylmer from the Forest All Over podcast. Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Much better after the second half. I was having trouble at half time, almost a breakdown of sorts. And then 45 minutes changed everything a little bit. So yeah, doing okay.
Good. And joining us as well is Reds fan and podcast regular Greg Oram. How are you doing, Greg?
Not quite as good as Chris, I'm afraid. I was raving at half time. I was actually really mad still at full time. You're quite good at giving us a bit of a gap before we come on to give me a chance to calm down a bit. So I'm going to try and be positive, but I will say now that I've got some negative vibes going on. So hopefully it won't be too bad.
Kick us off with general thoughts then, Chris, and then we'll bounce it from there and we'll get back to Greg's very extensive notes. Hold those up for the camera, Greg, to show how much you've prepared.
I will say that I was scribbling away. And then my son Orlando thought it was the thing to do. So he nicked the diary and he's got a whole page of his notes as well that he wanted to make sure that I looked at. So might be a few thoughts from him as well.
Excellent. Chris, I assume you've got no notes and just an oversized hoodie on, but give us your thoughts.
Yeah, sorry, you were calling me prime vanilla ice before I came on. I know there's going to be some comments, so I'll just take it and run. But look, my thoughts on today in general are, you know what, like we came out of the day better than when we started. That's how I have to look at it now. Obviously, it's one of those games that we'd earmarked to potentially win at home. I know that. I'm aware of that. Obviously, the first half performance was pretty poor, in my opinion, particularly from some of the players in the midfield, which we'll get into. But overall, we've come out and I'm fairly happy. All things considered, Luton were 1-0 up at halftime. We were 1-0 down. They ended up losing late. Everton lost late to Bournemouth away. That's a winnable game for them, I think. Or even they should have maybe got a point and they didn't. It was an own goal. Sheffield United got completely pegged back completely, 3-3, and then in the end we end up outside the relegation zone. So that's kind of like how my mindset has to be, because otherwise I'll wallow in a spiral of negativity. So that's where I am.
I do agree we were really poor first half. I think we get into a lot of good areas, and I said this before we start recording. The end product is pretty poor, and we don't get enough men in the box. For me, that was my two main gripes, and I think one of the reasons for that is team selection. Greg, I only say what I said beforehand because it's too much hindsight, but I don't get the midfield pairing particularly at all. I just don't think they work together, and I think that set us on the back foot with Origi playing as well. I still don't understand why he's getting all these starts. He's fine, but nothing better. Well, was that one of the big gripes for you, or does it extend well beyond that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody who is a Nottingham Forest fan, when that team came out, was thinking the same thing, straight away looking at Origi. He has had moments in a Forest shirt recently that have been far better than when he first came on board with us. But he doesn't warrant getting a start still at the moment. And everybody's calling out for that three behind Chris Wood of Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Anthony Elanga. It makes no sense to leave Elanga on the bench, even if you think he's going to make an impact. It's almost, we need to go, well, not almost, we absolutely need to go with our best 11 straight away. And that midfield pairing of Yates and Sangare, again, just doesn't seem to work. Sangare looks like he's pulling a caravan or something. You know, he was a bit better. He wasn't woeful. It just didn't seem to be working. The first 10 minutes was a bit frenetic from both teams, trying to get a foothold in the game. And then I got really frustrated because we seemed to just settle back into letting them have the ball, and then they carved us open with the goal. And then it looked like this was going to be another one of those days. And what you said about the attack is so true. We didn't have any thing up front really in the first half. It was quite toothless, trying to get the ball into Wood. He didn't really have many touches at all. But going back to the start of the game and the team selection, for me, I think this kind of put a nail in the coffin as far as I'm concerned for Nuno. I don't want him to be the manager next season, no matter what happens. If we go down, and I still think that's a very real possibility, I don't think he'll be the manager. And if we stay up, I really hope he's not the manager. I am now, sadly, a Nuno out person. And I'm not normally like that. I'm normally as positive as I can be. I'm normally trying to get behind and believe. But I'm sorry, time and time again, he seems to be making these stupid decisions. And it is costing us. And it's actually cost us 3 or 4 games now where he's made a decision to play Origi or not play a certain player when everyone's crying out for that, like Hudson-Odoi to play, for example. And it's just smacks, in my opinion, that we should be winning today. If we're going to stay up, if we're going to be better than Luton, we need to be winning today. A point is not going to be good enough because Luton have got fight in them. They've shown that. They've got fight in them. I'm not sure that we have until it almost becomes, like with 20 minutes to go. But even at the end, I felt like we should have gone on and won that game. You're right, Chris. The second half was a lot better. I definitely felt much better. But we should have been going on to really get that game by the scruff of the neck. And they just couldn't do it. There were moments, and Rayner coming on was a fantastic introduction. And Gibbs White playing in the 8, in my opinion, that's where he has to play now. I liked him there much better. He's dictating, he's controlling, he's the quarterback. He's got more time on the ball potentially. He can look up, have a little bit more time to pick a pass out. And him and Rayner in tandem, I think, has to be the way forward for these last 8 games. I don't think Nuno's brave enough. I don't think he's brave enough. And I think, sadly, that if we go down, it will be on his shoulders.
So would you want Nuno out now?
You know what? If he was sacked now, I wouldn't be bothered. And I can hear probably 1,000 people going, oh, no, that's really silly. If we sack the manager, we're definitely going to go down. But actually, you know what? I think if we keep him, we've got just as much chance of going down as if we don't. I'm not saying he should be sacked. I'm saying that if Marinakis did a Marinakis and sacked him, I wouldn't be bothered because I'm not having him. I'm not having him, and I'm not having Sangare at the moment. Biggest waste of money. People can go on about Ryan Yates as much as they like. Yeah, okay, he's not the best player we've got. And I know people say, oh, you've got to have more than just have a player who gives everything. I would give everything if I was in a Forest shirt. You two would. And all the people in the comments would give everything if they're in a Forest shirt. It's got to be more than that. But Sangare just doesn't look like he's bothered. He was a bit better today. I'll give him that. I'll try and be fair to him. But yeah, if they sack Nuno Espirito Santo tonight, I wouldn't be bothered.
I wouldn't sack him now. I think it's too late. I think you have to stick with him. And I think, I came away from that game thinking we'll limp over the finish line, which isn't a good attitude to have. But I don't see any of the other teams winning a great amount of games. I think we'll probably stumble to 1 or 2 wins somehow. But I wouldn't change manager. What I would want to see, as Greg said, I'd be perfectly happy to see Gibbs White start as an 8. And Rayner come in, or change that midfield combination and be more adventurous. I think the Origi experiment, it's gone past an experiment. Experiments are short term, but I think that has to end, and we have to pick a more front foot team. I mean, Fulham have conceded 3 goals to Sheffield United today. They are fallible at the back, but we seem to have gone back. This is what Steve Cooper did at the end of his line, his reign, to focusing on the containing the opposition and not playing to our strengths. And I do agree that Nuno's making mistakes, but I wouldn't sack him now. I think I said this on Friday's stream. I think he's, this is a job. This is a job interview for him over the next 9 games, and today he hasn't really passed it. But I wouldn't change him. What about you, Chris?
Not right now. No, I wouldn't. We've got 9 games to go. I think if we're going to do it, it would have to be an international break to give us time to bed in with a new manager. But we've had so much instability this season. We don't need any more. But I do understand Greg's frustrations, particularly at halftime. I was going mad. You want to start a game with your best foot forward. That's what you want to do. So why aren't Hudson-Odoi and Dominguez starting? They've been crucial in a lot of games over the course of the last 2 months. Really important players. I don't know if they're managing their load or whatnot, or what the idea there is. But Dominguez and Callum Hudson-Odoi should have been starting that game today, as far as I'm concerned. Origi was sloppy. He was caught offside on a couple of occasions. Sangare was, in my opinion, just not good enough first half. I could count in the space of 5 minutes how many times he gave the ball away. One thread into the centre midfield, another one where he missed an Origi pass, and another one where it was a throw in and he limped the ball back and his first touch was poor because he's lost all confidence. Team selection has to be better. Nuno's won 1 game in 10. On the face, but fans were complaining about Steve Cooper for that kind of record. It's not good enough. So I'm with Greg on that. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. We're kind of hamstrung. We're stuck in a situation where we kind of have to keep going with this manager to the end of the season. Otherwise, it could all be a house of cards and completely fall apart. What I'd like to see from Nuno is exactly what happened last year with Steve Cooper, where he gathered everyone around, got some fight, and we ended up winning 3 home games in a row to finish the season. Brighton, Southampton, Arsenal, took a draw away at the Bridge. That's what I want to see. I want to see some fight and some effort. And Gibbs White's certainly showing that leadership on the pitch. And obviously he's been excellent. Him and Wood have linked up really well. But I need to see better team selection from Nuno. And we need to see it fast, because if the fans are screaming out saying, look, we can't start Sangare and Yates, we can see it. He needs to see it as well. And we need to draw a line under that. And we need 3 points on Wednesday or Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? We need 3 points anyway against Fulham. End of.
Don't get me wrong. If I can just quickly add it. Sorry, Matt. Don't get me wrong. I realise that a lot of what I've just said is coming from a place of severe frustration. And when you're emotional, you perhaps aren't thinking clearly. And I've had a chance to calm down since full time, and actually just talking about it kind of got me riled up a little bit. And I'm not saying, oh, he's got to be sacked. He's got to be sacked. I think it's more just I'm quite flippant about the whole thing, because he's had the chance to pick what is so obviously the best team for us to play and has failed to do so. It smacks of him being inept, and it smacks of him actually being the reason why we're not winning football matches. Because let's face it, we've got to win against Burnley and Sheffield United, really, haven't we? But they're 2 away games. I mean, our away record is, well, you know what our away record is. It's absolutely terrible. So we've got to think about getting points at home. And it's today and it's Tuesday coming up against Fulham. So if he's the one that's making those decisions, and he's the one that's causing us to play in not to our strengths, then, yeah, the buck does have to stop with him. Now, yeah, he's not going to be sacked. I get that. And it is a frustrating, a level of frustration on my part to say, oh, he gets to get rid of him. I'm not saying let's get rid of him. I'm saying something's got to change, and something's got to change quickly. Felipe, again, we haven't mentioned him. I don't think he had a good game at all. I just think his legs have gone. Aylmer was a positive. Chris Wood, we'll talk about the goal, superb, positive. But really now it's about 8 games where you play your best team until they can run no longer. Otherwise, Luton may just pip us.
There's a lot of chat about Sangare and Yates in particular online. What's your take on Sangare, Chris? Greg said what he thought. I think he looks like he shrank in the game as it went on. From about 25 to 30 minutes, he just seemed to have gone, and I could see why he was taken off. I think the thing for me is he's can do things that Ryan Yates can't do, and sometimes to an extent other players can't do. But some of the basics of his game are just gone, and I felt it was the right decision to take him off. I'm not writing him off as a bad signing over time. I think next season he might come good, but this season and right now, he wouldn't be in my team. I know people are bagging his effort and everything. I just think his confidence completely gone, and it was the right choice to take him off for me.
It's weird. He didn't look match fit, right? He didn't look match fit at all. And I don't know whether he is or he isn't, but he's had plenty of time to get up to speed. And, I was on my podcast. I'm not plugging it. I'm just saying I was on my podcast the other day and I was talking to Matt, another Matt. Right? I'm not plugging it. I was on that podcast and Matt made a good point. He said, listen, if Sangare doesn't perform, I'd start him. But if he doesn't perform this game, he's done for me for the season. And I thought, wow, that's a bit flippant. And then I realized, no, there's only 9-8 games left. And I watched the game, and within the first half, I have to say I agree with them. We can't keep taking risks on players that aren't performing. He wasn't good enough. I'm sick to the death of giving opportunities to players who are giving, 50% one game, 100% the next game. He just wasn't up to it. He wasn't. He was pulled at halftime for a reason. He wasn't playing well. He was getting caught out loads in the middle. Yates had a couple of good moments first half, winning the ball back. They're both 2 similar players. They shouldn't be playing together. That's on Nuno. But Sangare was not good enough. It's as simple as that. I want him to be better. We're giving him as much opportunity and chance to be better as we possibly can. We don't have time for that. We'll be down in the championship next season and having to sell him on again. I've no interest in that. Play Yates, play Dominguez, forget Sangare, and when he pulls up his bootstraps and starts playing well in the second half, then we can start talking about integrating him back as a starting lineup player. He's had a couple of really good games this season, but it's not good enough. You're playing at home against Crystal Palace, who are missing. They're missing Decore in the middle as well. They're missing some key players. And you're still struggling against a young lad, Wharton, I think it was. It was just dancing around him at times. We can't have it anymore. It's not acceptable. I'm glad he was pulled at halftime. Nuno was reactive. That was positive. Dominguez has done enough consistently this season to start. Ryan Yates has just done enough consistently to start. Play the two of them together.
You just said, sorry, Matt, I keep jumping in. I'm really sorry. I'm going to stop doing that. But you just said a word then that's really important: reactive. There's proactive and there's reactive management. Okay, and Nuno so far hasn't been proactive enough. If you're proactive in management, you pick your best players, and you know from the start this is how we're going to play. It's almost like he's left Elanga on the bench just in case he needs to make a change, because that's his kind of card to bring on, and that's his reactive card. And for me, it's not good enough.
I was going to say about they get in each other's way. It feels like you don't need them both there, Yates and Sangare. And I thought Yates was okay second half, better. He was given a lot of space to patrol. I mean, can we make a case, Greg? I know what the answer is going to be, that if he'd taken Yates off and given Sangare that responsibility, would we have seen more from him, or do you think it was the right call?
Possibly. I mean, to be honest with you, when I saw that Elanga was coming on, I didn't see to start with who was going off, and I thought he's taken Origi off. And then when I saw Sangare going off, I was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time felt like this wasn't quite going far enough.
I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry. Was it a weird role that he put Elanga in? It was sort of a 10, which I don't think is his game at all. I don't know what I would have stuck him out wide and brought Reina on, because I thought Reina was decent when he came on.
That's right. I was just saying to my dad and my son when we were watching that Reina needs to come on, and in that exact change that he made about 10 minutes earlier, should have done that at half time. Again, he was reacting to things that were happening in the game rather than thinking, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to set up, and this is how we're going to win the game. It is quite a reactive management style he's got at the moment. So yeah, Elanga feels like he's being put on the left, and sometimes he's being put on the right. Sometimes he's being put in the 10. You know, if we get some consistency, and there's that word that we were all crying out for this season, if we get some consistency in a settled 11, then I think we've got much more of a chance. Personally, for me, the midfield 2 for Fulham on Tuesday, it won't happen, but I would be Dominguez with Morgan Gibbs-White, with Reina in behind Wood, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi in the flanks. That's what I would pick. He won't pick that. I'll say now that he'll probably start Origi, and I think then I'll just go and jump out of a window. But ultimately, I'm kind of tearing my hair out, Matt, if I'm honest with you. I'm so disappointed that we didn't win today. I'm just feeling really, really down about it. Can't you tell?
We might have lost the game. We'll get into some specifics.
I'm just happy we didn't lose, to be honest. Yeah. I'm sort of in the boat that I was before the game. Matt said to me, he said it's a disaster if we lose, and in my head I thought, oh no, if we lose now it's down. And there was boos at half time as well, wasn't there? So I think it could have been a lot worse. But I share your pain a little bit, Greg. I just think we have to put our best foot forward. What's the strategy in the first half there? What's going on? Palace, we sat off them. They had the best opportunities, even though it was only 2 or 3 opportunities in the first half. And you could see that Nuno had been slightly outclassed by Glasner immediately, and it puts us in the back foot straight away, which is not what we need.
Matt Sells kept us in it, because I tell you what, I'd say he should have scored. Well, I'd say he should have scored. Matt Sells pulled off a world-class save, and he made more saves in the second half. I mean, Matt Sells completely put to bed the whole goalkeeper problem. Obviously, fair play to Nuno for bringing him in, and Sells had a great game the other night for Belgium. So confidence-wise, he seems to be on point. But again, we're relying on him getting us out of jail. If we'd gone 2-0 down at half-time, we'd have been in a whole world of hurt.
Yeah, the game. I do think the game was on the line at that point. That was a crucial save. We'll get into some game specifics shortly, certainly. In the comments, anyone who was at the game, out of curiosity, were people booing them off at half-time for the performance, or was there an element of the ref who I thought let Palace get away with so much time wasting? And there was only, I don't know, it's interesting, the dynamic watching games on TV and watching them in the ground, because I always get more into it in the ground. But the ref, let them get away with so much time wasting and then gave 2 minutes added on. So I don't know if that was a factor as well. Just before we get into some match specifics then, word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. We'll appreciate the support as always. I'll just put a plug in for their fantasy league. Chance to win 2 tickets to a T20 game at Trent Bridge this summer if you sign up for the fantasy league. It's lowercase, this is the code, sorry, all lowercase, LY4UG8, LY4UG8. And also as well, just quickly, the Oasis isn't gig. I tried to say that too fast. Saturday the 13th of April, so not long now to that one, straight after Forest versus Wolves, a game I shall be at, and I think Greg will be at as well. So hopefully see some people there. It's nice to see some friendly faces today before the match. Right. The goal that Palace scored, I actually thought was a good goal, to be fair. He ran off Nico really well. I thought Nico gave his all, but Eze did run off him a couple of times. He takes up some great positions. What was your take on the goal, Chris?
Really, really good goal. Just a ball threaded through the middle. I think the initial pass was Lerma. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, Ivan Needle thread that was.
Yeah, that pass just took us out completely. Eze, he always looks like he's going to lose the ball, and it just sticks to his feet. I thought it was just the pass. The pass was brilliant, created that opportunity. Brilliant finish from Mateta. No real major mistakes. There can be some blame handed in there for maybe some of the defense stepping out. I think Murillo was called out when Eze cut back in to give the ball to Mateta. But for the most part, just a really good eye of the needle pass that we'd be expecting from someone like Sangare, the other end. Just really, really, really good pass. Great finish. Frustrating. That's how Palace got at us in the first half. There was another moment, obviously, with the Sell save, where it was a lovely ball through. I think that was Wharton's ball to Eze, and a good strong arm from Sell. So that was how they were going to get at us, and they did immediately. And it was kind of a sucker punch because it was early enough in the game, 12 to 15 minutes, just like, takes the wind out of our sails immediately. The air sucked out of the stadium. Just not great for us. But yeah, good finish. I don't know. I don't have massive blame for anyone. I'm trying to think of who stepped out. Did Felipe step out, or what did you see when you were there?
I I would say we should be trying to restrict those through balls in terms of players getting them away. Lerma shouldn't be having that much space. Wharton for the second chance as well. I think, ironically, Greg, that was perhaps why Yates and Sangare were both on the pitch, but they're still able to get those passes away. And I need to watch it again about Felipe. I agree. I don't think he had an overly good game. I mean, I guess he's done this early in his career, but he tries to read the play and nip in front, and a couple of times, and he took a yellow for it. And there was one really late in the game where if he'd missed it, they were properly in. But yeah, any different take on the Palace goal there, Greg, from you?
Not really. I mean, Felipe does make me nervous now, which is really quite sad, because last year it's held in such high esteem, and he clearly has been a wonderful player. But I think Father Time has caught up with him, and his injuries have meant that he's not the player that he was, and we need the player that he was, not the player that he currently is. So for me, if Bolly's not fit, then I think it should be Andrew Omobamidele in next to Murillo. I think that pairing is a good, solid pairing. In terms of the Palace goal, it kind of just came out of nowhere. And that's what happens when you get sliced open with a really good pass like you described, Chris. And so it was really frustrating to concede a goal like that. It wasn't a set piece and it wasn't a corner. And so there's always that positive, I guess, that we're, seeing something different. But without being too flippant, Mateta was a player that I watched when they played against Luton, I think it was, and thought he looks like he can finish, and yeah, he put that away with no problem. And Eze was the best player on the pitch today. And so no real complaints. Sometimes a good goal scored against you, you have to hold your hand up and say, not an awful lot we could do. I think Nico was perhaps caught out of position slightly, having looked at it again, but no, it made the crowd go a little bit nervous though. As soon as that goal went in, from me watching on the television, and I know you were there, Matt, but you could definitely sense a shift, and whether that was transmitted through to the players or not, because then for the next 15, 20 minutes, Palace seemed to have the upper hand, and Forest seemed to just kind of be trying to find their way back into the game a little bit. Where we did have possession, we played very well with the ball, with some lovely touches. Origi has got a lovely first touch. He has got good footwork for a big guy. I'll give him that, but that's not enough to get a start in this team, I'm afraid. And without anyone without any clear-cut chances, Wood is there to put them away, but we weren't getting the ball to him. Crossing was poor as well. Nico tried to cross from a funny angle, and Origi, his crosses just seemed poor, being cut out very easily by the first man. There was no lift on these crosses as well. So that just seemed poor as well. So, yeah, their goal was good. And at halftime, I just didn't see how we were going to get back into it.
Can I just touch on something that, sorry to interrupt, Matt, I know you were going to chat there, that Mark said on this podcast a few weeks ago. He said, every team who scores against us, it seems to just look so easy, either from a set piece or a threaded through ball as a bang Mateta goal. We really have to work hard for our goals. And that's why it was so frustrating to see that goal, because it just looked easy. It just looked like it was plucked out of the air. And then all of a sudden, for the rest of the half, we were pressing, but there was just nothing in the final third. And it felt like we were found out a bit going forward, and we just didn't have that final killer ball to cut open a team. And obviously we'll get to our goal, but our goal was a brilliant moment of invention from Gibbs White and Wood. The fact that we have to keep doing that to try and get ourselves into the game, yet every other team seems to score so easily against us, that for me is really frustrating. Sorry to cut you off there. I just thought round off Greg's point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. Thank you very much to Richard Spray. You give more money than you give to your relatives, I think, Richard. So it's very kind of you. Grateful for another $5 donation. Very kind, as I said. I want to see. So it's interesting hearing you guys say that, and I do agree. But when I was in the ground, I thought Hudson-Odoi responded well to the goal in terms of being positive, and I thought he was probably our man of the match for me. I mean, am I reading that wrong? Because I thought he actually was really positive and played well without necessarily having the end products that we're criticising him for. So, can he be a bit of both, Greg, or was he really good? What was your take on him?
I think you're right. I think Hudson-Odoi was our man of the match. His endeavour was there throughout the game, but he can't do it on his own. And he and Aylmer linked up well, I think, as well. I like Ola Aylmer playing at left back behind him. I think Hudson-Odoi plays better when he's got that kind of marauding player behind him. I know Toffler does get forward, but Tavares certainly does, and Aylmer certainly does. And I think that brings the best out of Callum Hudson-Odoi. And yeah, you are right. No, he definitely was trying to make things happen, but the point is that things weren't happening from either the left flank or the right flank in that first half. I don't remember any real shot on Dean Henderson's goal, any real problem. I mean, I don't think we troubled Dean Henderson at all in that first half. I can't think of any, and I can't think of any clear-cut chances where I'm at halftime thinking, oh, we should have scored that and we should have scored that. We were kind of got so far and just didn't have that final through ball or that final cross. Yates should have perhaps had a shot when he chose to pass wide at one point, if I remember that one. So yeah, it was just very disappointing, and it just felt flat. We needed a spark in that first half, and Morgan Gibbs White more often than not is that spark. And I felt that once he'd gone back into the 8 position in the second half and Reina came on, that's when we seemed to get a spark happening. Something seemed to change. I think it was it just after he came on, Reina came on, that we scored, wasn't it? I think so.
Yeah, the goal came from Reina sort of flicking it through to Gibbs White a little bit or something like that.
Yeah, so and it kind of just galvanised us. But yeah, I go back to what I was saying before. I would absolutely love to see that combination start and be so positive on Tuesday night and see us at home go for it. I can't see us doing it away, but yeah, on Tuesday, let's go for it. Let's have Morgan Gibbs White playing in tandem with Reina. Because one thing I did notice as well was it was almost like Reina, I don't know if he said this to him, maybe I'm just making it up in my head. It's almost like Reina said to him, look, if you go forward at any point back into your normal 10, I'll drop in. Because there was times when Reina was dropping deeper as well. And it's almost like they were kind of, moving it between them and sort of taking and swapping places. So if there's an understanding that they can create there with the wide boys and Chris Wood as well, we've got to go for it at home. I think we need 3 points on Tuesday. Today, in my opinion, today will only be a good point if we get 3 points on Tuesday. If we don't get 3 points on Tuesday, I feel like we've got 2 relatively okay points. I think today's point becomes a lot better because it's backed up with a win.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about today was I think it was just another game we could have won with second half possession, but we just don't create enough. So what I was going to say was, I think what Gibbs White does as an A, he just gives us another dimension. Because first half, Chris, I mean, are we just too one-dimensional? I think the tactic just seemed to be get it wide to Hudson-Odoi, take him on, get it wide to Origi and get Nico overlapping. It wasn't, I don't know, if you dealt with that, then we didn't seem to have anything else. And Palace dealt with the balls into the box pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think that the Palace had kind of figured out that Hudson-Odoi was going to be more dangerous than most of our players in this game. Obviously, Gibbs White in that pocket, middle position as well in the 10. But I felt like they kept doubling up on Hudson-Odoi, so it would even kind of cancel out the overlap somewhat from Aina. Even in the second half, when Toffolo came on, he couldn't quite get the overlap because they kept doubling up on Hudson-Odoi. And fair play to Hudson-Odoi, he managed to wriggle through and create a couple of big chances. But yeah, I felt like we were found out a little bit going forward, particularly in that first half. We just didn't seem to have it in the final third. And I think you're right. Both you're right. Like, it does give a different dimension when Gibbs White drops to the 8. And I think Greg made a good point there of when Reina and him and Gibbs White are inverting a bit, it just causes a bit of chaos for Palace to try and defend. I was surprised we didn't get more joy on the right-hand side because they weren't doubling up on us as much. And Williams didn't overlap as much as I would have liked him to. But I suppose he was sort of marshalling Eze and some of their front line. Yeah, I just felt like we were one-dimensional first half. Second half, we upped the ante, and I think we were just braver as well. There was one point in the first half where I think Felipe couldn't find a ball, and he gave an out ball straight down the middle to Wood, and then Wood sort of lost it. And I just thought, what are we doing? Like, what is the strategy here? You know. And then second half, I felt like we were just opening more doors, and we were like, look, screw it. If they score, whatever, but we're going after them. And that's when just the door started to open a bit. Wood started to get in behind them, and Gibbs White started to, the pressure was sort of taken off his shoulders, and he was finding Hudson-Odoi a lot more. And yeah, I just feel like whatever we did second half, be it mentally or strategically, it just worked. And I think we need to go from on the front foot from the off against Fulham. And we can't play the same way we played in the first half. Otherwise, they'll bury us because they're a good side, Fulham. They are.
I did feel for Chris Wood, Greg. Like, I mean, his all-round game wasn't particularly great today, but he's having the ball pinged into him with 3 defenders around him all the time, and he scored a goal. He's got absolutely no right to score. I think that's 8 goals in 11 games from him now. I mean, that's just that goal today was fantastic, and I think he's been. I mean, God, can I say he's been player of the season? I'm saying that off the top of my head without even thinking about who else it could have been. But I mean, there's an argument to be made now, isn't there, Greg?
Absolutely. He's putting the ball in the back of the net. He's doing his job. His all-round play generally is pretty decent, I think, from game to game. Maybe today there were moments when it wasn't the best, but that goal was absolutely fantastic. I mean, really good goal. I mean, as soon as that gets floated in from Gibbs White and it lands on his head, the way he goes up and twists and pops it into a loop to make sure it's going to arch over the flying Dean Henderson, it's absolutely bloody fantastic. I mean, seriously, a really, really good centre-forwards goal. And it shows again that he's not just scoring with his head, because like he did today, the game against Luton, that lovely flicking again, the Gibbs-White-Wood combination for that goal. And he scored the 2 against Luton at home and other goals as well. So he's scoring feet, head, the hat-trick against Newcastle, of course, we can all remember that. So he has absolutely turned his whole Forest career around from when he first came on board. And everyone was saying, what a waste and all that kind of stuff. I'd give him another year without a shadow of a doubt. He's great to have in the squad. And I'm just praying that he stays fit for the rest of the season, because I absolutely do not think we're going to see Taiwo Awoniyi again this season. I'm adamant that he's picked up an injury that's worse than they're saying. And again, just a gut feeling. I'm convinced that we won't see Taiwo again this season. And so for me, Chris Wood has to stay fit. He could be player of the season. It hasn't been a great season all around, so it won't be that difficult. But yeah, the game today was there for the taking in the second half. If we just had that little bit more desire, I think. Last 10 minutes, especially injury time as well, I thought credit to Palace. They stepped up rather than sitting really deep. They actually stepped up and they held us on the halfway line or actually back in our own half a little bit. And we didn't have them penned back on the edge of their box, which is what we should have been. We should have had them really penned back, or we were pumping balls in left, right, and centre. We were trying to get in down the sides and we were trying to make something happen. But we 6 minutes of added time, you think we've got a bit of a lifeline, but we just didn't look like scoring again. So that's a real shame. Maybe we ran out of steam, and we were lucky not to concede. Eze put one. I think it was Eze, wasn't it, when he should have bent it in. But yeah, I mean, look, I know I've been quite negative this particular podcast, and I apologise for that. My heart is just really heavy at the moment because I just can't see us, back in the Championship. I really don't want to see us back in the Championship again. We're there for so long, and I just fear us going down. We won't be the ones that come back up again with parachute payments. I fear that we'll be the ones that end up getting stuck down there for another 10 plus years. And so for me, it's just all about these 8 games and how much we need to get wins on the board. And yeah, I saw someone in the comments saying wishful thinking for 3 points on Tuesday. It's wishful thinking. I'm actually praying for 3 points at the moment. Believe me, I'm praying for 3 points every time. I'm a church-going Catholic, and I happily admit that I'm praying for 3 points for our team because something has got to happen. A bit of divine intervention would be nice.
We'd have come to that certainly this season. It feels like it. Thanks very much to Will Hobson for becoming a channel member. Will, really good of you. I'm going to ask Gary about this on Monday, Chris, who is slightly more qualified than you to talk about it, if you don't mind me saying, Gary Birtles. But am I wrong with... Don't take offence.
Really? No, I'm joking.
Am I wrong with this gripe about lack of men in the box? It feels like we kind of... Chris Wood's in there, and then we just kind of circle the area with Hudson-Odoi one side. Origi, who I thought when we signed him, I thought he was more of a striker than a winger. He hangs back. Rayner and Gibbs-White hang back. I mean, we're not going to score many goals with just one player in the box to aim for, are we? And Chris Wood's done it today with an unbelievable header, but he can't do that every match.
No, and he's tried, to be fair to Woods. I mean, he's, as Greg said, his goals have been unbelievable this season. I always notice he just manages to stay onside always as well for every single goal. I'm always like, is the VAR coming in? Yeah, we need more of that. I agree with players. I think players just need to arrive later on in the box. We need to have players. So we need Wood going in there. When Hudson-Odoi or Alanga either side, or even Aina Toffolo or Williams overlap to get those balls in, we need players like Gibbs-White arriving like they did against Man United with that goal. We need them just arriving right on time just to create the overload. And to be fair, Origi should be coming in from the right-hand side and inverting when we have chances on the left, and vice versa with Hudson-Odoi. I don't know formation-wise if there's much we can do about that. We're not going to go back to 4-4-2. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just not. So I think it's just a case of we need those front three, whichever one is free at the time, wherever the overload is. We need one of those 2 or 3 arriving late. And you know what? I wouldn't mind a couple of the midfielders arriving late either. I saw Yates do it first half, and he didn't take the shot on a couple of times. He just kept putting the ball out to the right to Origi. He didn't have confidence in his strike. Sangare should have enough confidence in his strike. He scored a few in his career from distance. We just need players arriving late. That's what I think. And then we'll start putting away more chances. Otherwise, you're right. We just seem to like a radar go round the outside and back again, and with not much sort of punch at the end,
Yeah, I think Gibbs-White could do it. I really, again, him as an 8, I do like. He's played it 2 or 3 times now, and every time he's good. But when Hudson-Odoi's got the ball on the left, I would like to see Origi on the back, arriving at the back stick to give us someone to
always,
and we just don't have that.
No, and I just think, like, I remember I've watched the Man United game over and over again because it was a big win for us, and I just think seeing Hudson-Odoi on Gibbs-White's goal, legging it up the outside to get in, and then Man United's defence turning around looking to seeing where he is, and then that leaves Gibbs-White free to just run into the box. We need to be practicing those processes in training midweek. Like, that's what we should be doing. Whenever the other person has the ball on the other flank, the other side should be flying in to open up space for the middle for players like Gibbs White to get into. And we just didn't seem to be doing that today at all. To be fair to Palace, their shape was very good today. They just knew how to extinguish any sort of attacks, particularly in the first half. So yeah, you got to give them a bit of credit, but we need to be doing that more. But Wood is causing a handful for everyone up there. He's been really, really solid this season. So as Greg said, as long as he stays fit, we have a chance.
We've touched on quite a lot of players, good and bad today. Have we missed anyone, chaps? Greg, anyone you want to talk about that that you want to highlight? Hopefully positively, but negatively if you like.
I think only just to maybe underline Gio Reyna. I know that he was mentioned in some of the pods you did in the build up to this game, Matt, and talking about the impact he had with the US national team. He's clearly a player in form. And so I was really pleased that he did get more than just a cameo today, because he's been so underused. And I know Greg Mitchell was a big fan, and I didn't really know much about him, if I'll be honest with you, before he came into Nottingham Forest. Having looked at some highlight reels on YouTube, as you do, I've kind of learned a bit more about how he plays. And I think he could be I think he is crucial. And I'd like to see him really get a start on Tuesday, as I've said a few times on this podcast tonight. So his impact today was very positive, and that link up with Gibbs White, I thought was really something we should try and develop going forwards. And yeah, I mentioned Matt Sells earlier. Another word for him. He's done really, really well. And of course, can't go a podcast without mentioning Murillo, because he is just class. He's just class. Absolute class.
Yeah, Murillo was the one I was going to say. And Sells. Murillo and Sells I thought were really good. And they give me a lot of hope that, especially Sells. If he solved that big problem, then I think that's good. Anyone for you, Chris, before we go?
Yeah, I was going to say Sells. And I was going to say Sells, to be honest. I just think 2 big saves. The game could have changed. First half, that one, okay, Eze didn't lift it round him, and it probably wasn't the best effort from Eze. But if you watch it again from behind the goal, the other angle, you'll see his arm was strong enough, and he just pushed it away with his arm at the same time as it hitting his arm. So it was a strong hand, and then it bounced wider from Ateta not to be able to get it. It's a brilliant save. It is. And that other save as well, second half, I think it was from Eze again, when he sort of bundled into the box and he stuck a leg out. I just thought 2 massive, massive moments in the game. Could have been 2-0 down or 2-1 down or whatever it was at the time. I just think, for me, Sells was really, really good. There was even little moments where Yates left the ball behind his head and it spun and bounced, and he came out and quickly grabbed it. And there's a bit of miscommunication. I thought he was really, really good today, and didn't take any chances. So for me, Matt Sells, I just expect Murillo to be brilliant every game now. I see him and I expect him to be really, really good. So it's about finding his partner now. And we know Bolly's probably the best option, but as we mentioned earlier, Omobamidele's probably my favorite one now, because Felipe looks like his legs are gone. But yeah, Murillo and Sells for me today were probably 2 really, really, they had really good performances.
We haven't talked about set pieces at all, which is kind of nice. We didn't concede one, which is brilliant. A few people asking or commenting on Gibbs White's corners. Same old gripe for me, Greg. They're all just aimed on the keeper and see if Henderson can punch it away. It's lack of variety, isn't it, again?
It's exactly that. It's lack of variety. When he went off on a game recently, Hudson-Odoi took a couple of corners, I think, and they look quite decent. And I've never been sure why he's not had more opportunity, either dead ball shots on goal, free kicks, or from corners as well. It is Morgan Gibbs White on every ball, and they just haven't been anywhere near good enough, and the variety just isn't there. So yeah, if I'm honest with you, I'm a bit kind of indifferent when we get a corner and when we get a free kick, because I'm like, yeah, this isn't probably going to come of anything, and if it does, then great, of course, but it feels like it's not something we work on. It feels like it's not something we pin any hopes on scoring from. And there are teams in the division, there are teams in every division where set pieces is their bread and butter for grabbing a goal. And, they know full well that when there's a set piece, they are, very likely to score from it. And we are just at the other end of the scale. We are very unlikely to score from it. So the expectation, I think, in the fan base is pretty low when it comes to that. And I'd like to see that change. I know that there's a set piece coach in the building that isn't being used by all accounts, and that just seems odd again as well. And if Nuno Espirito Santo, going back to his management, if he's choosing not to make use of a set piece coach when it is so blindingly obvious that we are abysmal or have been abysmal at defending and scoring from set pieces, if he's not making use of that guy, then why not? Why isn't he making use of him? That is a serious question that needs to be answered. Why is he not making use of that guy? Does he not think that it's worth it? Because so far we have been absolutely poor with free kicks.
Yeah, and imagine if we try something different, because no one would expect it. If we hit one to the edge of the box, then or anything.
I imagine it all the time, Matt. Trust me, I have to imagine it.
Villa scored from one stage, didn't they? I haven't seen it, but I was listening to it on the way back on the radio, and they said it was really imaginative set piece with Luiz to Diaby, and yeah, I would love to see that, but we'll pick up on that more on Monday with it'll be Gary Temps. And the inferior Greg. No, I'm joking there.
Not at all.
Hopefully,
the original.
The original Greg. There you go. The original Greg. Right, last question. You've had a bit of catharsis and a chance to cool down or heat up, however your viewpoint is. Are we going to stay up, Chris, or not?
Well, on the face of it, we got a points deduction in the middle of an international break that put us into the relegation zone. We came back. We didn't play a particularly good game. We got an okay result and somehow managed to still be outside the relegation zone after that. So I'm going to go with, my logical, unbiased instinct. If I was looking from the outside in, I go, well, Luton have been given the opportunity here with a few deductions, and still they managed to find themselves into the bottom three. I know they were playing Spurs away today, and I'm going to say, yeah, we'll limp over the line. We'll limp over the line. But if Luton get any form of result in the next few weeks, like big result away from home, like they could have got today, we're going to have to do what we did the end of last season and basically go on an unbeaten run, which is pretty unprecedented for us in this league. So, yeah, I think we will. We'll just about limp over the line, but it's going to take character. It's going to take guts. It's going to take us being braver like we were in the second half today. We need a couple of big wins soon, because 1 win in 10 is relegation form, no matter which team you are. You know what I mean? What
about you, Greg?
I'll never bet against my team, even though I'm feeling really low today and I'm feeling really down, and you've heard me be a bit negative. I do think we'll stay up. Everton, 0 wins in 12. Luton, 0 wins in 9. Forest, I think 1 win in 9. With the points deduction, as you say, going into this match, we were in the bottom 3 and we're no longer in the bottom 3, just from that one game. So, we are in a positive position compared to how we were at 2:30 this afternoon. Luton play Arsenal on Tuesday at Arsenal. We play Fulham at home. Another crucial round of fixtures. Everton keep losing, as I say. They lost again at Bournemouth today. So, yeah, we're going to stay up, because I think when it comes down to it, we're going to just have enough, and we do have better players. And I've said for a while that I've always thought that their Luton's depth in their squad was going to be their undoing. When it gets to them needing to call on a player who's not getting game time because he's not first choice or second choice because they've got injuries, then I think that quality is going to be their undoing. And they do have fights. I mean, you go to Spurs and you go 1-0 up very quickly and you hold on to that lead for a good amount of time. And it's only an own goal, I think, that draws them back to 1-1, and Son pops up late to score. Great for us. I'm hoping that it's going to be demoralising for Luton Town. I've said before on the podcast that any other season, if we were flying high, I'd be loving what Luton Town are doing. But at the moment, they're in a direct fight with us. And if it's us or them, then it's got to be them, without a shadow of a doubt. So, yeah, we're staying up. In spite of Nuno's poor team selections, in spite of feeling negative today, we're staying up. We're going to win on Tuesday night. We are going to get the points needed. And even without getting any points back, let's say in the appeal, we'll have enough.
Yeah. I mean, I am weirdly significantly more confident this season that will stay up than I was at this point last season, and not for good reasons. Everton have got no form, as Greg said, and they're probably going to get a points deduction. I think we'll hear that by the end of this week. But even if they don't, they've got no form. The bottom three, as it is now, thankfully, are not nowhere near as good as Leicester, Leeds, and Southampton were. Certainly, Leicester and Leeds were last season. So, part of me thinks if we had the team that finished last season with that spirit and unity, I'd have more confidence. But we've got what we've got, and I do think we'll find enough points in us. But it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to be pretty miserable. And I think this whole season's been miserable. But I don't think that it's blind faith. I don't know if Simon's aiming that at me. I just think the teams around us are not very good. Paul in the comments put, is it one win in 24 games combined? I'll put this up on the screen, actually. I'm going to assume you're right here, Paul. Is it going to show up? Yeah. Between us, Brentford, Luton and Everton, 1 win in 24 games, which was us v West Ham. I mean, that is atrocious. And I do think we'll just find enough points to stay up in a miserable fashion. But I do wish that Nuno would pick a more proactive, adventurous team against Fulham, even if it puts us at risk, because we have to win games now. Yeah. If we come out of this with 4 points, Chris, then let's assume, and we should never assume, but let's assume that Luton lose to Arsenal and we come out of this with 4 points and we're 3 points clear of the relegation zone with 8 games to go. That's a position we would all take, wouldn't we?
100%. I mean, regardless of what Luton do or did today, if Forest took 4 points at home to Palace and Fulham, that would still be a good result. Like, I wasn't expecting 6 points from this. We rarely win back-to-back games in this league, right? So regardless of what happens, our aim is to get as many points on the board as possible. I know we're looking at Luton and Everton and looking at their form and how bad they are, but for us, if we just stay insular, focus on what we're doing, and get in amongst the mix again, even get in amongst the Brentfords who are on poor form, they'll probably lose to Man United tomorrow. Just get in the mix. I think that it would be really positive to get 4 points. In my head, I was thinking if we can get 5 points from the 3 home games we have, that's today, Fulham, and the Wolves game after Spurs, that would be positive. Just from those 3 games. Spurs is, it's going to be a tough game anyway. But so 4 points from those 2 games would be brilliant either way. And I think it really does show. We're looking at the table today and we're disappointed with the result, but we're still out of the relegation zone with the deduction. So, yeah, Luton have got fighting spirit, but in my opinion, they're not good enough. And that's my hope that the season ends that way.
Yeah, I think so. Paul, you've absolutely failed. 1 win in 20 games combined, but the sentiments will still apply. I'll give you that one. Yes, certainly. That Brentford game's tonight, Chris. It kicks off in 5 minutes, so we'll probably...
Okay, we'll find out if I was right or wrong.
Yes, exactly.
This will backdate itself badly when they win, but yeah.
But we'll let people go and watch that. I think we'll end it there. Good to have 400, I think it was about 450 people with us for most of it. So, yeah. I know it's not really easy against Fulham, and if we do win, it's going to be, nerve-jangling, horrendous nightmare kind of can we get over the line type performance. I'm sure it's never going to be comfortable, but I kind of have to have some belief we'll do it.
Faith, it's Easter after all.
Get on Greg's rosary beads or whatever. Yeah, something like that. We shall leave it there. Thanks very much, everyone, for your company. We're back on Monday, as I said, with Gary Birtles, Greg Oram. I should have got a new regular guest on with a different name. It's like casting in soaps. They can't have the same character name. We've got 2 Gregs now. Greg Mitchell and Michael Temple. Time TBC, but we'll be back for that. Chris, thank you very much. When's your next podcast?
Probably pre-Fulham. Yeah, I always say I don't know. It's probably pre-Fulham. It'll either be with a Forest All Over the World fan or Matt, and we'll see how it goes. Can I say one more thing that is a bit of a left turn? Greg Mitchell is a legend for what he did in the overlap. He took it to Gary Neville. I absolutely loved it. Gary Neville only got one thing right, and that was the fact that the top 6 got away scot-free from what they were trying to do 3 years ago to extradite themselves in the league. Fair play to you, Greg Mitchell, if you're listening. And yeah, 2 legend Gregs, Greg Oram and Greg Mitchell. That's all I have to say. And I'll leave it at that. And best of luck.
And well done, Forza. I can't believe we didn't say well done, Forza. Display pre-match. We'll talk about that on Monday with the legend Greg Mitchell. If you have enjoyed this, do us a favour, by the way. If you haven't already, hit like. That would be massive. So you can subscribe. That'll be really good as well. Good reviews are all welcome, and you can consider becoming a channel member like Greg Oram. Talking of Greg Oram, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to quickly say before I part, Fulham on Tuesday, I feel that this could be a bit of redemption because it was that 5-0 defeat at Fulham. I was there. That was so horrific and such a low point, and I never want to go back to that again. That we need to now make this next game on Tuesday the high point of our season. You know, the absolute high point of our season, and no more room for negativity. It's all about being positive now. So I'll put that to one side. Let's go into Tuesday feeling positive. We can do this. Thanks for having me, Matt.
No problem. We've almost done an hour for a 1-1 draw where we didn't play very well, but there was lots to talk about. Right. Have a good evening, everyone. Have a good Easter, and we shall catch you on Monday.